I'm pleased to be able to greet the first Venice Soft Power Conference. Uh, I congratulate President Rutelli on this initiative. What could be a more perfect location for a conference on soft power than Venice? Every time I have visited Venice, I have been captured by its soft power. And also, what could be a more appropriate topic than the issue of soft power, which is becoming increasingly important in an information age? As John Arquilla of the Rand Corporation has put it in the past, we often thought the key question was whose army wins. But in information age, we also have to ask a second question, whose story wins? Let me say a word about power and soft power. What is power? It's basically our ability to affect others to get the things that we want. And you can affect others in three ways. You can coerce them, you can pay them, or you can attract them. It's that ability to get what you want through attraction without coercion or payment that I have called soft power. Now, the concept of soft power is not new. It's as age old as all human behavior. We all use soft power every day to get the things we want. We don't go around hitting others and paying them for everything we want. So attraction is crucially important. And attraction can lie at the level of the individual, or at the level of the city, or at the level of the country, and at the much larger international communities. But the important point is that soft power is available to everybody, but at the international level, soft power tends to rest on three types of resources. A country's culture, its values, and its policies. That's why Venice is such an appropriate location for a conference on soft power, because of its centrality not just to Italian culture, but to world culture. And I would argue also that so much of what we're seeing in Europe today is an appreciation of broader policies of multilateralism and defining national interests broadly, which contributes to European soft power. Now, notice that soft power depends on perceptions. It matters very much what's in the mind of the beholder. If I use hard power, it doesn't matter sometimes what you think. For example, if I want to steal your money, I can take out a gun and shoot you and take your wallet. It doesn't matter what you think. If I want to get your money through soft power, I have to persuade you that I am some sort of a guru or prophet who will use this money to help the world, and that makes you want to give me the money. That usually takes much longer. It takes a hard job of convincing, but that means that soft power is often slower, but nonetheless can be effective just the way hard power does. But it does depend on perceptions. Now, when you look at the question of perceptions, that brings up another issue about soft power. Very often, the soft power of a country depends not just on the policies of the government, but also on the role of the civil society. So if we ask, where does American soft power come from? It doesn't come from the Voice of America or the policies of the US government. It comes as much from everything from Hollywood to Harvard to the Bill and Melinda Gates foundations. No, there's many aspects of the culture and the civil society are generating soft power, even if the government policies are not. And that's interesting because it does bring us to the current situation of the period after the COVID pandemic. I would argue that both the United States and China lost a good deal of soft power by their initial failures to cope properly with the pandemic. Um, China was able to recover somewhat more rapidly than the United States, though their earlier authoritarian censorship contributed greatly to the spread of the virus in December and January. But what's interesting is that uh, China has then followed this period by trying to change the narrative, the story, with what I call face mask diplomacy, uh, appearing to be benign on public health issues. But the trouble with that is it tends to look propagandistic. It looks like the actions of a government currying favor rather than the true actions of the civil society. So, in that sense, I think we realize that while the United States and China have both lost soft power in this recent episode, that you can't just win it back with government propaganda. Anything that looks like propaganda is not credible. And to be attractive and persuasive, you have to have credibility. I think back to the question of the period of Vietnam in the United States, where the American government policy was enormously unpopular throughout the world. People were marching in the streets all over the world opposing the US government policy in Vietnam. But it's interesting that what the demonstrators were singing was not the Communist Internationale, it was Martin Luther King's We Shall Overcome. In other words, an anthem from American civil society showed that there were aspects of the United States culture which were still popular, even if the American government policies were not. And within a decade or so, the United States had regained its soft power. I suspect that will be the case again, that sometime after the Trump era, the civil society in the United States, as well as changes in government policies, may help us to regain our soft power. I think that's going to be harder for China to do because the Chinese insist upon tight Communist Party control over civil society. So that when you have a genius like Ai Weiwei, he essentially is expelled from the country. China also has a problem of territorial disputes with many of its neighbors, and its so-called wolf warrior diplomacy of aggressive approaches does not enhance soft power. The recent attacks on the Indian border, for example, hurt China's soft power in India. But that brings me back finally to Europe and European soft power. I think the fact that Europe has successful societies and that Europe, in its creation of a European Union, has been able to lead the way on a type of multilateralism. And the fact that Europe also works with others in a broad global multilateralism, these are great sources of European soft power. And that's why it's so appropriate to have this discussion starting in Venice on Monday. And I wish you all great success in advancing the cause of soft power in one of the world's greatest cities, which is itself a source of soft power. So good luck to you, and I wish you well. Thank you.